Well, hello, this is Peter Combs from Bidamount.com and BidamountLive.com and P.O. Combs Asian Art in Gloucester, Massachusetts. And today is Friday, May 21st, 2021, and this is our weekly video. We do this every Friday. We go back through the weekly online auctions around different places and tell you how they did, particularly pertaining to Chinese and Japanese and Asian arts in general. This past week was a pretty busy week. One of the things I wanted to mention, last week I said that there seemed to be a big drop in items being posted out of the EU. And what we found out was one of our commenters on last week's video told us also, we called eBay after we recorded last week's video and said, why is there such a decline from the EU? And they said because eBay is now separating the UK from the EU because of probably all this Brexit stuff. So if you want to see what's going on with British sellers, you now have to specifically click on the Great Britain button under Advanced Search on eBay to find those listings. Otherwise, they might be a little bit difficult to do. All right, but last week the things on the newsletter page did quite well. We're going to get into those on the live global member pages, the subscription pages. Our Carlo Bonte Sale is just finishing up today. Did extremely well so far. I think they're getting down to the end of it. And we're going to show you some of the prices realized. Waddington's big sale up in Canada ended yesterday, and they haven't yet posted their prices realized. Otherwise, we would have included them here. But they promote their sales on Live Auctioneers, but they don't share the price results there. You have to go to their site post-sale and get the list to see how they did. But that's going on. We also added to the global pages this week the Sotheby's online sale and a few other things. And we updated the site multiple times this week because so many auctions were closing. And tomorrow we're going to do it again because the global pages, the whole sections of them are all sold now. It's quite something, and we're going to go in and dig around and see what we can find tomorrow morning over breakfast. All right, let's see what's going on here on Live Auctioneers. As I mentioned, the Bonte sale is sort of it's getting down to the end here, and we're going to get to it in a minute. This was something else. This was a seller. This was the Shepherd's Irish Auction House in Ireland that sold this. We like this. This was a very nice grisaille decorated 18th century export teapot for the European market. Beautiful for the English market, the Irish market. Beautiful little teapot, circa 1770 or so. Super decoration and all that good stuff. And it did extremely well. It brought $2,935. We thought it would do very well because it had a couple of things going for it. One of them is it didn't have a broken handle. This style of pot is so prone to cracked handles. Those of you that buy and sell them, you know that you always seem to find little cracks here or on the bottom one in particular from lifting, from weight, putting it down too hard, eventually cracks form. And the spout looked to be in very nice condition. There was one tiny nick on the lip, and that was it. So it was a heck of a nice little pot, and it did very well in the end. I'm sure it went to a good collector. That was a good thing. And on to the Carlo Bonte sale. There were several really interesting Japanese Champlivé bronzes in this sale, and this was one of them. This thing was enormous, and it only went for $1,957. It was 100 plus the buyer's premium. It's 118 centimeters tall, so it's 4 feet tall. I thought this was just elegant and wonderful. It's probably Meiji to Taisho period. It's not, Edo or anything like that, but it's just elegant, beautifully done. Great detail, very striking, just absolutely striking piece of Champlivé, and a beautiful warm cocoa brown bronze patina they gave it when they made it. Just exceptional. $1,957. What a bargain. What a great thing. And the other Japanese thing they had was this really great double carp bronze with a bell in the middle, the gong in the middle. This was wonderful. Also from Meiji to Taisho period, but just very interesting. Very interesting and maybe unique. I have not seen this before, to be honest. Not done quite like this. I've seen other things suspending gongs and bells of all different types, but this is particularly interesting. And the dragonfish are sort of fighting over the pearl, so to speak. And this thing was pretty good size too, 58 centimeters tall, so it was 2 feet tall. This was a good size object. $2,466 against a $1,500 to $2,000, $46 US or 2,000 euros. So right in the ballpark, and then the buyer's premium will add on another $600 or $700. But what a great looking thing! Absolutely fabulous quality. And then over on the porcelain side, they had this. It was a very nice Qing style Hu-form vase. This was a late 19th century one. It looked to be a genuine late 19th century one, not one of the modern ones that they're calling late 19th century. It was nicely glazed, nicely shaped, good detail, and went for $6,115 US. Very attractive. And then over here to this was one of the surprise. I had a couple of inquiries on this pot. People wanted to know because it had a very modest estimate, $1,500 to $2,000. Beautifully done, sort of an enwois decorated celadon vase. And the big question was, it had a Qing lung mark on the base, and did I think it was authentic? Here's another shot of it here, another shot of it here. Very interesting looking vase. And here's a picture of the bottom of it. And let's pull this in here for a second. The mark is hard to read. It's sort of buried in the glaze itself. It did sell at Christie's at some point back it looks like 1982. It sold. As far as I can see, this was a Qing pot. Based on how it appears, the way the foot rim is formed, the way the mark is done. It has that sort of oddball Qing mark that they did sometimes. They repeated it often in the late Qing dynasty, but some of the structure of the mark was a little bit different than you typically see, and I think that's why they had doubts about it. But they did make authentic ones. I like the way the glaze runs in here along the sides. I think it was fine. I told folks that asked about it, I suspect it's probably authentic from what I can see, and I said you ought to expect to pay $30,000 or $40,000 for it. It went over that. It ended up selling for $45,249. A lot of people really like this, but very nicely potted. The potting right away will tell you a great deal about these. I know some of you might say, oh no, I don't think it is. I think it is. And it was 43 centimeters tall, which was quite big for one of these. So it was just shy of 18 inches in height. Nice big pot. And I still think there's money left in it if they decide to sell it. But that's a great looking thing. I'd probably be inclined to keep it. It's a wonderful monochrome. And then over here to this very large Meiji period jar with lid with this wild food lion on the top. Look at this. All right, with his head down in the ball. Very classic Meiji period style to the Fu lion. And then this nicely decorated pot, and then the shaped base supporting the whole thing. And this was a pretty big pot. This thing was 79 inches tall, so it was just a little bit under 3 feet tall. Very, very attractive. Beautifully colored, looked to be in good shape, and I think it was a bargain. $1,162 US or 950 euros. All right, now granted, shipping it'll be kind of expensive, but that's a heck of a good buy, and it looked to be in quite good condition. So there you go. And then to this, the garlic form neck turquoise ground vase. This is a 19th century vase, but it's based on a Han Dynasty bronze that they did in this form with the garlic mouth up around here, and it's done in this very nice turquoise. I think some folks maybe thought it was Kangxi period. I don't. I think this is pretty clearly a 19th century thing from what I can see of it. And it brought a 19th century price for a good-looking vase, $917 US, probably mid-19th century. But it was very nicely colored. The color of this vase was extremely attractive, very nice, quite even, with slightly darker areas here and there just to draw your attention. But beautiful overall and beautiful shape. Really, the potter on this did a great job. That's a great shape, nice profile. And then here, a pair of transitional style covered jars. They were wonderfully done, a beautiful decoration, lots of detail on them. I don't think anybody thought these were actually transitional, judging by the price, but just beautifully done, late Qing pots. Very decorative. One, the lid there had a tiny little hairline in it, a couple of minor chips. But overall, the decoration is very good. The color was quite even and nicely done. A little bit of shading in the green, which gives it a little bit of pizzazz rather than just being a flat, solid color, which can be kind of tedious to look at. And they brought $2,935 for the pair. And these were decent size. These were 35 centimeters or about 14 or 15 inches tall. Very good looking. And then the Kangxi vase. This is one of these spotted deer vases with the red-headed cranes. We've seen these before. There are a number of them. They do turn up in Europe. This one looked to be in quite good condition, though, I must say. And it was about 35 centimeters or 13, 14 inches in diameter. So it is a charger, which does make a huge difference in value. And the birds are wonderfully painted. And overall, the plate looked to be in very fine condition. Not a lot of wear, no rim chips, no fritting, nice colors of the pine trees, very nice even green, and you have the sun above, and then this beautifully done yellow spotted deer, and the yellow was quite good. The yellow was good and strong, and even and nice aubergine shading, and it ended up selling for $2,446, which is in the range that we've seen them sell before. All right, if you look back, we've seen these before. Maybe has a little hairline in it, might bring 900, but if they're perfect, no repairs, they bring more. That's all there is to it. They bring more. And that was a good looking one. And then this very pretty pair of cafe au lait famille rose dishes, Yongchen to early Qianlong period, very nicely done. And this pattern has been seen, of course, you've seen it on just a white background plate, and here it is with the cafe au lait ground, this very deep, rich, warm chocolate color, and then these very, very bright reds, these beautiful Yongchen enamel reds, very strong, and then you have these scrolling devices at the tops and bottoms, and butterflies, and leaf forms here, and then filled in with more and more flowers, and then the lotus centers, also filled in with flower baskets. Very attractive. They went for $587. These were about 8 inches in diameter each or something like that. Yeah, 7 or 8 inches in diameter each, but very pretty, and it's a pair, which is always desirable. And then over here to this sort of unusual looking pair, nearly matched, late Qing dynasty peaches. They call them yen vases. They're really not quite yen vases, but more like baluster vases. It doesn't matter. These are interesting, and they display well together. And the only difference really in them is this upper yellow versus blue roux head border at the top. Here you have these blue roux heads, and over here you have scrolling vines against the Femi June background. That's the only difference, but I think they sort of complement each other rather nicely, and I think somebody got a good buy. $1,345 for the pair, for both of them. And this was, let's see here, 44 centimeters, so they were about 18 inches tall for the pair, which makes them a particularly nice buy. And they did provide some nice photographs of the bottoms. Here are the bases to them. Pretty typical late Qing foot rims on those, even possibly early Republic, but it doesn't matter. They're beautifully done, very decorative, big, and they sold for a very reasonable price, I think. And then on to this Hu form vase. I had a number of inquiries about this. I mentioned it last week in the video when it was coming up. I just like this cobalt ground, blue ground, white slip decorated Hu, late 19th century or a bit. Let me see. Let's take a look at this. Make sure I don't step on my own opinion. There we go. Late 18th, early 19th century vase, I think, right there. I think so. But beautifully done. God, the colors on this thing were wonderful. Very nice. Had a modest estimate, 1,000 to 1,500 euros. Blew through that. A lot of people really, really liked it. Ended up selling for $5,381 plus the buyer's premium. All of these you have to add the buyer's premium to, which is 25% at Carlo Bonte's. All right. And then on to this was the late 17th, early 18th century Kangxi period jar with cover. And this jar was interesting because it had an applied metallic rim to the top, which they did in Europe sometimes. They would add these, often they were done in lead. And this jar did have a small hairline in it and a couple of nips and nicks around the top. But other than that, the peony and vine decorations were quite nice on it. A nice size pot too. The handle looked good on it. The cover looked about right for it. And let's see, how tall was this? 53 centimeters. So this was just about in the 21 inch range. Good size pot. $2,690. Now the pattern, of course, is sort of a stock pattern for Kangxi porcelains. You see it on plates and chargers quite often and that sort of thing. Here it is on a jar. But this was a big gutsy thing and would display beautifully. Very nice, and I like the metal rim. I love that. Very, very attractive. And that's sort of how the Bonte sale went. All through, everything seemed to do quite well. I think the Japanese things were relative bargains. Those two that we started with, I thought were just wonderful. Either one of them would be fun to own and very evocative to look at. And that was that. Okay, and now over to the weekly newsletter page on Bidamount. See how things went. If you haven't subscribed to it, please do. We go through eBay and Catawiki each week, and we put onto the pages things that we see. We have searches that we've created and ways of finding things, and we dig them out as best we can and put them on here. Josh Chamberlain in New Hampshire, Juice 1499. He has a sale that started last Friday night, and when we update this evening, we'll be adding that sale onto this page. And there's a link now here to our own website, the BidamountLive.com site, that we added last week, and we'll rotate these pictures and change them around as things come and go. And check that out. And we're going to get into some of the things on here that have sold. And one of them is going to be about this pair of Cloisonne vases at the top that did very well. When we get to them, I'll talk about that a little bit, because we had a lot of inquiries about it, because a couple of these have turned up, and auctioneers are dating these vases, these Cloisonne vases, anywhere from 18th century to 19th century and so forth. And they're not 18th century. They're all 19th century. They're all later 19th century, and I'll get into it a little bit with you. And on to this, the Famille Rose Yongchen period foliate rim dish, lotus rim dish. Nice little example. Very pretty. Lots of good strong reds and pinks in it. Beautifully done. Minor wear here and there to the enamels, it looks like, but nothing distracting. This is a good-looking little dish. Ended up selling for $302. Very, very nice. This was the seller's skids over in the United Kingdom. Had that. And then the silver box with the jade lid on it. Nice piece of early 20th century Chinese silver with this very attractive jade plaque that's probably early 18th century, early 19th century, but nicely carved. Nice piece of mutton fat jade or nephrite. Good detail in the leaves and so forth. This is where I think some of the money obviously went when it was bought, and somebody picked it up. I think this was actually quite reasonable considering the piece of jade that was in it. Went for $2,000. I think that was a rather good buy. This was a seller in Cheshire, Connecticut, versus the UK. All right, and now over here to this, the Femi-Vert Kangxi style vase. This was a very, very pretty vase. It was beautifully done. It had these bamboo trees, the way they did them typically very often in the late 19th century. You see this same sort of treatment of bamboo trees on plates from the late Qing and into the early Republic period. It was a style that they used often. And this one, they sprayed the bamboo trees all over the piece. Here you have a couple of scholars outside playing Go and so forth. Here you have somebody with a pole. I'm not sure what he's doing. At any rate, it was a good looking vase. Here's the picture of the bottom, late Qing, early Republic foot rim. Nicely done, and somebody picked it up for $1,132, which isn't bad. And this was a decent sized pot too. It was 48 centimeters tall, so it was about 20 inches tall, or 19 inches tall. Good big pot, went reasonably, and it would make a spectacular table lamp. You can do them these days without drilling, you know. And then over here to these sort of Famille Rose Kuan Yin style pair of melon jars, late 19th century, but nicely done. A mirror pair, which is quite nice. Instead of a match pair, the figures are opposing one another. Very nicely done. I love the soft blue in here. There's a very lovely light blue on here that you don't always see on these pieces. And then you have all the greenish yellows and so forth. But nicely done. Nice looking pair of vases. And they ended up selling, or jars, they ended up selling for $1,925. You often find these, by the way, that these were made as lamps back in the 1920s when they weren't terribly old, maybe 30, 40 years old at that point. And they were very popular with decorators as table lamps. So if you go to a house sale or yard sale or an auction, always check to see what they made. If it's an old house with old family that's been around for a few generations, always check the table lamps, see if they haven't lamped up a nice piece of Chinese porcelain at some point along the way. Now, over to this Qianlong period flattened rim charger with the birds on a rocky outcropping with peonies and all this. Nice, clean, crisp decoration on this plate. That's the only way I can describe it. Everything is nice and neat and tidy. The gilding is very nice, and it looked to be in quite good condition all the way around. Here's a picture of the back of it, so forth. There's the foot rim on it. The auctioneer was debating back and forth, I think, in his head whether it was Kangxi or Qianlong period. In my opinion, that's more than likely a nice Qianlong example. Some people might disagree. But at any rate, it sold for $451, and I think this was about 13 inches in diameter, 35 centimeters, about 14 inches in diameter. Good sized piece of porcelain. And I think, relatively speaking, that was a pretty good buy. And then the silver eyeglass cases. These are sort of interesting. They turn up every once in a while. They have sort of a filigree element laid down on them. Here's the button you push to open it. It pops open. There's the edge of the hinge. And you keep your spectacles in it, you keep your glasses in it. Because bear in mind, back then glasses were hard to come by. They were expensive, and people tended to keep them in nice cases when they weren't wearing them to protect them. It was a very important thing to do. Eyeglass cases today, everybody gets their eyeglasses, and nobody knows where the eyeglass case went a week after you got your glasses. But back then, people did keep them in containers. And this was a beautiful one, and it ended up bringing $1,097. But it was a nice example and sort of unusual utilitarian object, which makes them desirable. And then over here to this late Qing dynasty chrysanthemum chrysanthemum plate, nicely done, no rim decoration. And if you look at the surface here, you see all these little bumps and dimples and whatnot in the slightly off-white tone of the glaze. And then you take a look at the back with this fat, rounded, nicely polished foot rim. And the bat, sometimes you see bats or you see sprigs of flowers running around the outside of it. Here's a nice detail of it. The detail work was quite good. The leaves were neatly painted. The flowers were neatly painted. They had good shading. And this was a late Qing example. Ended up doing pretty well. It's 14 inches in diameter, about $676. But it's like a nice portrait, and the fact that it's rimless makes it look more like a painting on canvas, just a round canvas. Okay, and then the Chinese silver Hong Kong dragon teapot on stand with these bamboo legs, classical style. We've seen them before. I believe this is something from Super Shrink. He seems to have very good sources for his auctions on Chinese silver. And this was a beautiful example, and had the bamboo form spout and bamboo handles, beautifully done in this nice high relief work dragon coming off the side of it with 4 claws. And in the end, it hasn't finished yet. This hasn't finished yet. This finishes in 2 days. I should have put this just a couple of buttons over. Anyway, this is a heck of a nice thing, and this style typically brings in the $2,500 to $3,500 range. It's a beautiful piece of silver. If you're looking for a good piece of Chinese silver, this is something to consider. Very good. It's a nice presentation size. All right, and then the pair of Chinese Cloisonne vases. This week, there were a couple of these that have turned up in auctions in the last week around the world. And I had a number of inquiries this week because some auctioneers, as I said at the beginning of the video, date these as being 18th century. These are not 18th century vases. This very pattern, this style with the phoenix and these very sort of heavily worked fu lines climbing up the necks and so forth. This is a type of these vases, and they turn up fairly often. One just sold this week. These had been drilled at one point, but there was one in the Bonte Sale. I think it sold for about a little over $5,000, undrilled. And these were made in the late Qing dynasty at a factory, and they used this pattern a lot, and they produced a lot of them, and they sold a lot of them because they were good quality, and they were very popular visually with people. People just loved these. They like the color, they like the pattern, and they turn up in Europe fairly often. They turn up in the U.S. as well. But they're not 18th century, okay? They're judging by the metal work on them and so forth, and some other aspects. If you look here, the way the fu lines are done, they're sort of you notice the carving is almost squarish looking in places like blocks, sort of Picasso-esque almost. These are later Cloisonne, but very, very nice. People that buy them know exactly what they are. People that chase them, but don't bid on them. Those are 18th century because it's an 18th century form, obviously, or a form that was popular in the 18th century. It's actually a Ming form that was the moon flasks, and then they were brought back into heavy use, especially during the Qianlong period. But this is a nice cloisonne example. Very decorative, very good looking, and they tend to be a very nice presentation size. These are 39 centimeters tall, so they're 15 inches tall each. They look great on a mantle. And the pair that was on eBay sold for $7,100. But as I said, they had been previously drilled and made into lamps. But they do turn up, and so in the future when you see one in this swirling pattern with the phoenixes, just know that they're late 19th century. That's all there is to it. All right, and you can go through them if you want to see the bottoms. Here's what the bottoms of them look like. This is where they were drilled. They were refilled in with lead, but that's a pretty standard 19th century foot rim on a piece of cloisonne, okay? And that's it. But they're worth $7,100. That's all I can say. Like I said, a single just sold for $5,000 undrilled. Once you start drilling cloisonne, it impacts them quite a bit in value. And then over on Katawiki, there was this very nice piece of simple, very elegant satsuma. Nicely detailed. The shape of the vase was nice, a rounded base and then squared body, bowed out, and then these nice round shoulders up to sort of a Meiping mouth. Very attractive. And this did pretty well. It brought 852 euros, or around $920 US, which is quite a good price. I don't think it was an overpayment. I think it was a very attractive pot, and it was a good size. It was 42 centimeters tall, too. So it was 16 or so inches in height. Nice big vase, very, very pretty. And then things that are coming up next week is this weekend's newsletter will be this, a 19th century pot with a soldier on it. And it's up to, let's see, so far it closes on Monday. It's up to $1,279, but very, very pretty. And as I said, Josh Chamberlain has a sale that we're getting in there. There's this nice Kangxi pot with a pair of matching vases with a central urn with flowers spraying out of it, and winged horses. Look at this. This is so cool. Love this. And then this blue foo lion, and then a tiger, and another foo lion, and then there are little panels of flowers in between. This is a very pretty little plate. Very, very pretty. And it's up to $451. I suspect it'll bring $600 to $800, $600 to $700, but nice looking example. Really nice looking. And there's also, we came across this just this morning actually, was this soapstone Kuan Yin figure. It was on the watch list. I hadn't really looked at it. It was something that somebody here saw and tried to put on the watch list. But it's a nice looking little Kuan Yin, 19th century, 1850 to 1890, something like that. Nicely done, nice color, nice little details on the knee there and so forth. And it's up to $21. That's it. But it's got 4 days to go. Should bring $300 or $400. But you guys decide what it's going to bring in the end. That's all there is to it. But it's very attractive, very attractive. And also this just popped up, this turquoise ground moon flask with famille rose decoration. Let's take a look at the bottom of it here. Okay, here. Yeah, late Qing, 1870 to 1900, somewhere around there. But nice decoration, nice bright colors, very cheerful, quite attractive. And the height on this was, what, about a foot or something like that? See if he included the dimensions in there. They didn't include the... That's odd. The seller didn't put in the height. For some reason, or maybe I just assumed it was about a foot tall. Most of them are. But at any rate, if you're interested in that, get a hold of the seller and ask him the exact height on it. But I'm going to suspect it's probably 11 to 13 inches in height, something like that. But I liked it. It was a good-looking pot. And again, moon flasks, always popular. People like them. They look great on mantles. They look great on shelves. And this one's up to a whopping $1.25, but it's only been online less than 24 hours. So we'll see how it does. It's being sold by a dealer in Buffalo, New York. All righty. And that's it for the week. If you have any comments, please leave them. And if you haven't subscribed to us yet on YouTube, please do. If you want to share these videos with anybody, throw them on your site, do whatever you want with them. We love it when people share our videos. And come to Bidamouont.com and learn about the newsletter, sign up for it and get notified. Check out the global pages. And if you need help with an item, use the identification assistant service on the homepage or the preview assistant before you buy. This was something I want to bring up. I heard from somebody this week who bought a couple of pieces of porcelain, and for some reason he spent a great deal of money. And he called up after he'd bought them, after he'd taken delivery, and after he'd paid for them. And I had to tell him that they were copies. And he's a nice man. And he spent almost $20,000, and now he's going to try and claw the money back with his credit card, which is going to be very difficult, if not impossible, to do, because the auctioneer didn't apply a date to the listing just said it's a Chinese vase, Chinese plate. The chances of him getting his money back is about 0 at this point. But I feel bad. He's a very nice guy. And, somebody said, well, they don't want to give you the link to the auction before it sells because you might go in and scoop it up. Those of you that know us know we've never done that, and we easily could. And we never have. We don't do that. If you share something with us, that's it. If we get multiple people sharing things with us, we might put it in the newsletter because so many people I know are looking at it. But we tend to treat all those inquiries with considerable amount of confidentiality. Once the sale's over, we'll mention that we've had inquiries about it, but typically we leave it alone unless it's already on the site and we think it's a very exciting piece. But we don't use that service to find things by having people send us images. All right, so if you see something, before you spend $20,000 or $30,000, ask us and we'll tell you what we think. All righty. Have a wonderful weekend. We'll be back next week. I may not be around too much next week. I'm having some surgery done on my hand. I severed a tendon. And long stories, I did something stupid. And but I'll be around afterwards. And I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Summer's here. And enjoy the good weather. All right. And thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.